Ladies and gentlemen, let me begin with a question I've asked countless older adults over the past decade. What still weighs on your heart, quietly, persistently, even now? And more importantly, what if that weight was never meant for you to carry this far? After the age of 70, many people look back on life with a mix of gratitude and reflection. They remember family, achievements, the ups and downs that shaped them. But underneath those memories, many are still carrying something heavier than they realize: emotional clutter. This isn't always obvious. It shows up in quiet moments of restlessness, in the heaviness that doesn't go away, even when the house is finally quiet. Some of that weight comes from regret, some from old expectations, and some from the belief that we must keep enduring things that no longer serve us. Over my 10 years working with older adults in both clinical and personal settings, one truth stands out. Peace in later life doesn't come from perfect health or wealth. It comes from knowing how to let go. I'll never forget an 84-year-old woman I met in hospice care who told me, "I kept waiting for the right time to feel light again, but I didn't realize I had to be the one to put the weight down." That sentence has stayed with me for years, because the truth is, aging doesn't begin in the body. It begins with the burdens we carry in our minds and hearts. You see, the real question isn't, what do I need to add to my life to feel better? It's, what am I still holding on to that no longer fits where I am? So today, let's begin with this simple truth. After age 70, it's time to throw some things away. Not just the clutter in the closet or the clothes that no longer fit, but the emotional baggage, the unspoken resentments, the outdated obligations, and the fear that somehow letting go means giving up. Because it doesn't. Letting go means making space for joy, for peace, for connection, and for moments that actually matter. This isn't about minimalism, it's about emotional freedom. A kind of freedom that begins when we finally say, "This no longer belongs in my life." So if you've ever felt like your heart is full but your spirit is tired, I invite you to walk with me through 5 powerful releases. 5 things that, once discarded, open the door to peace. And we'll begin with one of the most deeply ingrained burdens of all: the need to constantly please others. Letting go of the need to please others. Let's begin with one of the most overlooked yet emotionally exhausting burdens we carry into our later years: the constant need to please others. Many older adults, especially those who have spent a lifetime as caretakers, parents, or community leaders, struggle with this deeply rooted habit. It begins early in life, when approval from parents, teachers, or peers shapes how we behave. And over the decades, it becomes second nature, so much so that we forget who we are without it. I've met older adults who still say yes when their hearts scream no. They agree to phone calls they dread, family gatherings they feel invisible in, or conversations that leave them emotionally drained. Why? Because they fear being seen as difficult, selfish, or ungrateful. But here's the truth. After 70, your energy is sacred, and how you spend it is not just a choice, it's your right. This isn't about becoming cold or disconnected. Letting go of people-pleasing means reclaiming your voice, honoring your limits, and recognizing that your worth is not measured by how comfortable others feel around you. In fact, the people who truly love and respect you won't need you to sacrifice your well-being to maintain their comfort. One woman I worked with, age 76, shared something I'll never forget. "I realized I'd spent most of my life making everyone else happy, and I didn't even know what made me happy anymore." That moment of clarity changed her life and mine. She started saying no to visits that drained her, yes to quiet mornings alone, and she even took up painting again after decades of silence. All because she let go of the weight of others' expectations. So ask yourself, are you still shaping your days to fit someone else's mold? Are you saying yes out of love or out of fear? Because the truth is, trying to be everything to everyone is like chasing the horizon. You'll never reach it, and you'll lose yourself along the way. Letting go of this habit won't make everyone happy. Some people may push back, but that's their burden, not yours. The reward is worth it. Honesty in your relationships, space in your calendar, and a sense of dignity in your choices. And when you stop living for approval, you start living in truth. Now that we've loosened the grip of expectations, let's turn inward to something even more stubborn than other people's opinions: our own regrets. White heavy checkmark 2. Letting go of regret and self-blame. There's a quiet kind of pain that follows many older adults into their 70s and 80s. Not physical, but emotional. It's the pain of what if, and if only. Regret is a heavy chain, not made of iron, but of memory. It drags the past into the present and blinds us to the joy of the moment. I've seen it too often. People who've lived full lives still haunted by a decision made decades ago, a word they didn't say, or a dream they let slip away. One gentleman I worked with, 81 years old, kind, intelligent, once confided, "I think I was a good man, but I wasn't a good father, and I can't forgive myself for that." He carried this guilt like a shadow, even though his adult children still called him every week. When we finally talked through his pain, what changed everything wasn't someone else's forgiveness. It was his willingness to forgive himself. You see, no one gets through life without making mistakes. Not one person. But what defines us in the end is not whether we stumbled. It's how we respond when we look back. Regret, when left unchecked, becomes toxic. It turns memories into weapons. But when embraced with compassion, regret becomes what it was always meant to be, a teacher. If you've ever said, "I should have known better, I wish I'd done more," or "I ruined everything," let me ask you this. Would you say those same words to someone you love? If the answer is no, then why are you still saying them to yourself? Self-blame erodes dignity. It convinces you that your worth is tied to a version of the past that can never be rewritten. But the truth is, you are not the sum of your mistakes. You are the sum of your growth. Letting go of regret doesn't mean pretending nothing went wrong. It means saying, "I've learned, I've changed, and I deserve to live this chapter in peace." Every day you wake up is another chance, not to fix the past, but to reshape the future with clarity, softness, and strength. So let go. Free your mind from the weight of all the should-haves. Replace them with "today I will." Today I will forgive. Today I will love. Today I will begin again. And now, as we leave behind the regrets that hold us back, let's talk about something just as draining: the relationships that still do. 3. Letting go of toxic relationships. Why do we keep answering calls from people who only speak when they need something and disappear when we do? That question comes up often in conversations with older adults, especially those who've spent a lifetime giving more than they ever received. By the time we reach our 70s, our energy is no longer infinite, and neither should our patience be. Toxic relationships don't always announce themselves loudly. Sometimes, they're quiet connections built on guilt, subtle manipulation, or years of habit. I once spoke with a 79-year-old man who told me, "I've had a friend for over 40 years, but every time we talk, I feel worse afterward. I keep holding on because we've known each other forever, but I don't even know why anymore." And that's exactly the point. Longevity doesn't equal loyalty. History doesn't justify hurt. Some relationships, even those that stretch over decades, no longer nourish us. They slowly drain the life from us. There are many forms toxic connections can take. The family member who constantly criticizes your decisions. The friend who always plays the victim and never asks how you're doing. The adult child who reaches out only when they need money, but never just to say hello. Or the neighbor who gossips, complains, and leaves you feeling exhausted. Letting go of toxic people isn't an act of cruelty. It's an act of self-preservation. At this stage in life, your peace is more valuable than pleasing those who disturb it. It's okay to create space, to reduce calls, shorten visits, or even stop responding if needed. Not with bitterness, but with calm conviction. You don't have to announce it or justify it. You simply step back. One woman I worked with decided, at 82, to stop attending her weekly family lunch because her presence was met with sarcasm and silence. Instead, she started inviting her two closest friends for afternoon tea every Thursday. She told me, "For the first time in years, I actually look forward to Thursdays." That's what letting go does. It makes room for what actually brings joy. So ask yourself, who adds light to your life? And who dims it? Because relationships should leave you feeling seen, respected, and safe, not smaller, silenced, or tense. When you release what drains you, you create space for what uplifts you. And sometimes, peace isn't found in what you hold on to, it's found in what you're finally brave enough to walk away from. Now that we've cleared the emotional noise from toxic ties, let's face something even deeper, the fear that quietly shapes how we live every single day, the fear of death. 4. Letting go of the fear of death. Most people don't fear dying. What they truly fear is leaving this life with things unsaid, undone, and unloved. In my work with patients in their 70s, 80s, even 90s, this realization returns again and again. The shadow of death isn't frightening because of what it is. It's frightening because of what we think it might steal from us before we're ready. After a certain age, the concept of death stops being theoretical. It becomes personal. You feel it in the aches that linger, the friends you begin to lose, the quiet moments when the house is still. But the fear doesn't help. In fact, it robs the present far more than death ever could. I remember sitting beside a man in his late 80s who told me, "I don't fear death. I fear reaching the end and realizing I was so busy avoiding it that I forgot to live." That line struck me like thunder. And it mirrors what I've seen time and time again. The fear of death keeps us small. It convinces us to avoid risk, to silence joy, to choose safety over meaning. But death, when faced with acceptance, becomes a teacher. Across cultures, from Stoic philosophy to Buddhist tradition, wise people have always said, remembering death is the beginning of truly living. Because when we accept that time is finite, we stop wasting it. We stop worrying so much about what others think. We stop putting off saying, "I love you." We stop saving our best china for a special day that may never come. Letting go of the fear of death doesn't mean rushing toward the end. It means reclaiming the present moment as sacred. It means allowing yourself to feel joy without guilt, to sit outside under the evening sky without needing to accomplish anything, to look at your hands, your wrinkles, your heartbeat, and say, "Thank you. I'm still here." It means making peace with the unknown. Because whether there is something after this life or not, what we do know is that this breath, this hour, this day is yours. So what if you chose to live this week as if it were a gift, not a countdown? And what if, instead of fearing the final page, you focused on writing your last chapters the way you want to be remembered? Now that we've spoken about fear, let's challenge something equally limiting, the belief that, after a certain age, we're too old to change. 5. Letting go of the belief that change is no longer possible. The most dangerous lie we tell ourselves after 70 is this: it's too late for me. But here's the truth, it never is. One of the saddest patterns I've observed in my work with older adults is the moment when someone stops believing they can evolve. I've sat across from people who've said things like, "That's just how I am," or "I'm too old to start over," even when their hearts quietly long for something different, a hobby left behind, a relationship to heal, a version of themselves they never got to become. But here's what I've learned as a professional working with seniors for more than a decade. The brain remains plastic. The heart remains open. And the human spirit? It never retires. There was a woman I worked with, aged 78, who had never used a smartphone in her life. When her granddaughter moved across the country, she made a decision. She would learn. It wasn't easy, she fumbled, got frustrated. But by the third week, she was video calling every Sunday. She looked at me and said, "I didn't know I still had the capacity to grow. But I do. And I love who I'm becoming." That's the truth. Change isn't a privilege of the young. It's a choice of the willing. Yes, routines feel safe. Familiarity feels comfortable. But comfort and happiness are not the same thing. Many people remain stuck in patterns that no longer serve them, simply because they fear the unknown. But the unknown is where new joy lives. It's where second chances hide. So ask yourself, are your current beliefs about yourself helping you or holding you back? Because aging doesn't mean your story is over. It means you now have the perspective, wisdom, and freedom to rewrite your next chapter on your own terms. Try something new. Say something you've always held back. Learn the thing you thought was for younger folks. Surprise yourself. You don't need to be who you were. You need to be who you're becoming. And when you let go of the belief that change isn't possible, you unlock something far more valuable than youth: hope. Now that we've unburdened ourselves from that invisible cage, we arrive at the final and most powerful release, the one that ties them all together, living with a lighter heart, letting go of everything that no longer serves, and walking into peace. What if the peace you've been searching for wasn't in adding anything more to your life, but in releasing what never truly belonged? Over the past few minutes, we've walked together through 5 powerful forms of release: the pressure to please others, the weight of regret, the burden of toxic relationships, the fear of death, and the belief that change is no longer possible. Each one is like a stone in your pocket, small on its own, but heavy when carried every day. And now, you've begun the most powerful journey of all, lightening your heart without losing your depth. One of the greatest truths I've learned from working with seniors is this: the final chapters of life aren't about waiting for the end. They're about finally living without apology. You don't owe anyone your exhaustion. You don't have to carry the past just because you survived it. And you don't need to stay the same just because others expect you to. There's a kind of peace that doesn't come from silence. It comes from clarity. It's when you know what no longer deserves your energy. It's when you let go, not out of bitterness, but out of wisdom. It's when you stop asking for permission to feel good. So here's my invitation to you. Let this be the season where you choose yourself, where you trade heaviness for healing, where you clean not just your home, but your heart. And if today's message spoke to you, even in the smallest way, then perhaps it's time. Time to write new endings to old stories. Time to reach out to someone you love. Time to unsubscribe from pain that you've normalized. Time to be free. Because peace doesn't arrive like a visitor. It appears the moment you stop carrying what no longer belongs. And if you're still here, still breathing, still curious, then your story isn't finished. It's just becoming lighter. Thank you for being here today. If this video brought you insight, comfort, or clarity, I invite you to leave a comment below. What's one thing you're ready to let go of? And don't forget to subscribe so we can keep walking this path together with strength, softness, and joy.